There is a joke that appears at this time of the year, usually closer to Christmas than actually on Epiphany, although it's an Epiphany reference. And it's, what if the three wise men were indeed three wise women? And the response is that they would have asked for directions, they would have arrived on time, they would have helped with the delivery, cleaned the stable, prepared a casserole, and world peace would already exist. Always there is a joke about men and directions. It's true, there are men who are unable to stop and ask for direction. And in a sense, these three wise men do indeed seem to be a bit lost. You know, we find out that they go not to Bethlehem, where the star had been shining, but instead to Jerusalem. On Friday, Pope Francis, in his homily for the Epiphany, reminded us of an axiom that comes to us from St. John Chrysostom, one of the early fathers of the church. And St. John Chrysostom, in reflecting on the Epiphany and the movement of these magi, concluded something very beautiful. He said that the wise men didn't set out because they saw the star. They saw the star because they had already set out. They didn't set out because they saw the star. They saw the star because they had already set out. As they made their journey from the east across the desert, over mountains, through streams and rivers, it was an arduous journey. And they had a lot of time to reflect on what the star meant and what their journey was all about. And having concluded that the star signified the birth of a newborn king, they went exactly where they expected to find a king. They went to the royal palace in Jerusalem. They knew exactly where they were going. But the same gospel tells us that the star disappeared. They didn't see the star. That's why they ended up in Jerusalem. Their expectations overtook the guidance that was being provided to them by divine revelation in the star. Only once they come to Herod's palace and find that there is no newborn king there, do they learn important information. Herod gathers together those who have studied the scriptures. And when they look at the scriptures, they announce to the Magi and to King Herod and to the people of Jerusalem that the Christ, the newborn king, was to be born in Bethlehem. And now redirected not just by natural revelation, but by divine revelation in the scriptures, the Magi see again the star and make their way to Bethlehem, where they adore the newborn king. The light of God's revelation is likewise the topic of the Old Testament reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah announces that darkness has covered the people. They find themselves in gloominess because they are in exile in Babylon. But the light of God's favor still shines upon them and upon their homeland at the city of Jerusalem. That God would bring them back there was his promise. And indeed, not only would he bring them back to Jerusalem, but all peoples around the world would stream toward that holy city because of the light of God's revelation to all people. We are no different than those people to whom Isaiah proclaimed that prophecy. Our exile doesn't have us in Babylon. Our exile has us captured by sin and the darkness and gloominess that sin brings to our hearts and to our world. And yet, deep within us, there exists a hope. There exists a desire to make the very same journey that the people of Israel did, that the Magi did, that many, many people since have made, toward God. To know of his loving mercy and his forgiveness. When it comes to it, though, we find out something that we don't expect. Not only does God not appear where we want him to appear, not only does he not stay where we want to put him, we can't and don't have that kind of control over God. Instead, God doesn't even ask us to move. Loving us so much, he comes to us. That's what we celebrated at Christmas and continue to celebrate on this Epiphany. All we have to do is, as St. John Chrysostom taught so long ago, begin to make our way. Take the first step. And in doing so, realize that the sign you are looking for will then be given. Don't wait for the sign before you move. Move trusting in God, and he indeed will guide you. The journey isn't one outside of ourselves. Instead, it's one looking exactly where God chooses to be, and the last place often that we look for him. And that is deep within our hearts, in the love that he places there, and asks us simply to give away each and every day. For in doing so, the light of revelation shines not only on those who receive the gift of love, but on we who give it.